Dale, do you think that the federal minimum wage should be raised to $15 an hour over the course of 5 years? Do you think that the minimum wage should be raised to $15 an hour over the course of 5 years? For our poll, we decided to survey people in Dunwoody at many locations, including Kroger, a gym called One Life, and the school. So this led us to go around and surveying many people we see. We asked people this question: should the federal minimum wage be raised to $15 an hour over the course of 5 years? Now this polling method led to some errors because Dunwoody is geographically limited. We only have a certain amount of people in Dunwoody and certain types of people, so we couldn't get the true random sampling that many better surveys look for. And also, the people in the areas we surveyed are only specific types of people that go to those locations. So this also limits the random sampling of our survey and causes several errors.
Well, looking at this question, we found that 54% of the people believe that it is not a good idea, and 46% of the people believe that it is a good idea. Looking at it, the older population believes that it's a good idea, and the younger population is against it. Obviously, people that are working minimum wage do not think that it is a good idea to keep working at $7.25 and prefer their minimum wage to be raised to $15 an hour. Business owners as well as corporate workers do not think it's a good idea.
The origins of minimum wage began in 1894 in the country of New Zealand, where it was passed at 25 cents per hour.
Before there was any minimum wage put in place, there were sweatshops where young women and young children were paid very low wages for extreme work, for hard work. And from the 1890s to the 1920s, during the Progressive Era, there were activists and politicians that played a very important role in getting a minimum wage law passed in the United States.
The first minimum wage law passed in America was passed in 1912 by the state of Massachusetts that only accommodated for women and children. This was an effort to stop the sweatshops and unfair labor that was going on in America at this time. The first federal minimum wage law was passed in 1938 by FDR, which was the Fair Labor Standards Act, setting the federal minimum wage at 25 cents per hour. Since 1938, the minimum wage has been raised 22 times by 12 separate presidents.
In 1968, the federal minimum wage peaked at $1.60 per hour. This is equivalent to $11.79 per hour in today's money. After new minimum wage laws passed, such as this one, people realized that there was that an increase in minimum wage had a direct correlation with less working hours.
In the past decade, many cities have raised their minimum wage far higher than that of the federal minimum wage. For example, in 2015, Seattle raised its minimum wage to $15 per hour for citizens of the city. The average minimum wage worker in America makes $15,000 a year. If they were to support a family of 4 on this income, that would set them at 65% below the national federal poverty guideline. This is not enough to live off of.
This is Fox News, and today we're welcoming a guest, Sam Volan, to tell us why he believes that the minimum wage should be raised to $15 an hour over the course of 5 years. Sam, would you like to start talking?
So I do believe that the minimum wage should be increased. I feel like it is basically impossible for someone to live on around $7.25 an hour. It's just so low, and I don't think it's reasonable to make someone live on that.
Could you elaborate on that, please?
So all of the people who are paid minimum wage, 60% of them are below the poverty line if they have children. So for all the people that are paid minimum wage, if they are having children, and if they are planning on having children, they're still getting paid minimum wage, 60% of those people will be under the poverty line. I just don't think that's fair for them.
Well, but don't 64% of the people who work minimum wage jobs do it part-time, so aren't they not supporting a family anyways?
Well, if you really look at it, minimum wage has been raised before. So if you really think about it, accounting for inflation, minimum wage has been over $11 at one point, and that seemed to work out pretty well.
Do you think there's a direct correlation between that increase in the minimum wage and the living standards of the people?
Well, I believe that there's probably a increase in overall net income, and with an increase in net income, obviously you're gonna have a better way of living. I mean, if you look at Seattle has a minimum wage of $15, and people there are just doing fine. So what's the problem there?
But didn't in Seattle it not really change the amount of purchasing power people had, the amount of money that income they were really making?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. From what I've seen, Seattle's just doing fine.
So you're saying that $15 an hour will help some people and it won't hurt the economy overall?
I mean, all these corporate workers are making so much more money than all of the workers that are working $7.25 an hour. Couldn't their salaries be decreased and some of that money goes to the people that don't get as much money?
Wouldn't the corporations no longer be able to hire as many people or have to cut back on hours to afford all this? Where's that money going to come from?
Well, I'm not really sure. You'd either have to cut it from the salary or increase the prices, but I believe that it's a worthwhile investment for the country as a whole.
And some people believe that the money will come in due to more people being able to spend money by having that extra money from their salary. And also, with the company making more money, they just can just pay their employees that extra wage because more people will spend money on the company. Thank you for tuning in to Fox News. Have a good night.